Hello everyone, in this video we'll show you some extraordinary aviation related incidents. You'll see impressive air disasters that occurred during air shows, how massive fighter jets are transported, how airplanes help extinguish fires, and how they are used in crop dusting. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give this video a thumbs up right away. The pilots are in serious trouble and are making an emergency landing of a passenger plane. It's shaking violently as it approaches the runway. The lives of dozens of frightened passengers and crew members are in their hands. A collision is imminent. But don't worry, this is just a simulation. The pilots are actually honing their skills on a specialized flight simulator. It fully replicates the cockpit with the instruments and panels, and the windows are equipped with screens. The pilots are practicing emergency landings, so it's no wonder they're so calm, even as their plane is being tossed around. An instructor is filming them from behind. Even though you know it's just training and no one is in danger, you still feel anxious for them, as if you were on board yourself. They managed to complete the landing successfully. Now they'll better be prepared for any real-life emergencies. A jet fighter can perform a vertical landing just like a helicopter. Watch how smoothly and slowly it can do this. This is how some planes land on aircraft carriers. They can do this because their engines rotate to a vertical position. This allows them to land and take off in places without a long runway. At first, it might seem like the plane has come to life and is moving its nose like a snake. But in reality, the cargo bay is opening. Inside, two NASA planes are being loaded onto a special platform. This cargo plane is enormous. Inside, it looks like a hangar where you can load just about anything. A man broke into McCarran International Airport and started acting strangely. When the police and airport security noticed him, he climbed onto the wing of a Boeing 737. It's as if he's a child trying to climb onto the wings as if it were a slide. But he is not doing a very good job. Where is he trying to go? Does he think he can hide there? Meanwhile, he's surrounded. Suddenly, he loses balance and falls off the right wing into the hands of the police. Mechanics are repairing an airplane. Its fuel tank is damaged. Fuel is leaking through a small hole. Notice how it pulses, as if the airplane is wounded and now receiving aid. It's fortunate that this issue was detected in time and not during the flight. Look at how unusually this helicopter is landing. The pilot must have decided to show off their skills. They smoothly maneuver, first spinning a few dozen meters above the runway. Then, the pilot begins to perform an even more extraordinary trick. The helicopter sways like a pendulum, as if it's hanging on a string. At first glance, it might seem that the rotorcraft is ascending with its blades motionless. I was amazed when I first saw this. Is it some sort of new secret development, or just clever editing? In reality, it's merely an optical illusion. This effect is only possible when filmed with a camera or phone. It's called the stroboscopic effect. The rotation speed of the blades matches the frame rate of the video, making it appear as if the helicopter is hovering in the air without spinning its blades. A Boeing 747 is transporting a space shuttle on its back. This is a method NASA has been using for many years. The shuttle is securely fastened on top of the airplane, making it safe for transport. At one point, two military fighter jets appear in the frame, escorting the shuttle. It looks incredibly epic. Hundreds of people came to see this. It's a rare sight, so they are truly lucky. Did you know that larger passengers and cargo planes have radars hidden in their noses? These radars help detect precipitation, turbulence, and assist pilots with navigation. Engineers are checking the engine of a Boeing 747. A massive white cloud of smoke begins to emerge from it. Within seconds, the smoke becomes less dense and starts to dissipate. The engine speeds up, and the air, mixed with smoke, rushes out with great force. I'm not sure if that's how it's supposed to be, but I wouldn't want to see this before a flight. During an air show, a fighter jet began to fall due to a technical malfunction. Thousands of people witnessed the ejection system in action. Some even thought it was part of the show when the multi-million-dollar jet crashed into the water. Look at how fast these planes are racing just above the water's surface, skimming the surface. This spectacle resembles an air race, where each plane, with its own number, competes for first place. They fly incredibly close to each other. The sight is breathtaking. These pilots here are true professionals, skillfully controlling their planes. Against the backdrop of the sunset, it looks truly captivating. Have you ever seen an airplane with folding wings? It seems like it could be conveniently stored in a garage in that form. This airplane is the Fairy Gannet. It's a real rarity, as such planes were used in 1949. It was developed in the United Kingdom after World War II for anti-submarine warfare. Thanks to its folding wings, it could be easily transported on aircraft carriers. They have long been out of service, so when working models are shown at exhibitions or air shows, they cause a real sensation among spectators and aviation enthusiasts. Look at what perfect condition it's in. It's like brand new and is still capable of showing what it can do. To prevent fighter jets from having to return to base for refueling, they can refuel in mid-air. We were lucky enough to see how this happens from the cockpit of an F-18. The pilots of both aircraft coordinate their course, altitude, and speed for a safe refueling operation. The fighter jet is gradually approaching the tanker aircraft. This is the most challenging part, requiring high precision and stability. It's also very dangerous. A special hose is lowered from the tanker aircraft, while the fighter jet is equipped with a specialized fuel receiver. Just look at how skillfully the pilots execute this. It seems as if the two planes are frozen in midair above the clouds. Their movements are barely noticeable. Once the tank is full, the hose is disconnected, and the jet continues on its way. A passenger plane attempted an emergency landing on water but broke apart. These horrific images were captured by witnesses in 1996. The plane was hijacked by terrorists, and an emergency landing was attempted. Unfortunately, 125 people lost their lives. Only a few dozen passengers managed to survive such a brutal impact. A plane flies over a runway, and the exhaust gases create something resembling two horizontal tornadoes. The smoke doesn't dissipate immediately, but begins to drift away, forming strange shapes. It looks so beautiful. The smoke trails fly above the operator. Notice how the smoke swirls, almost like a twister. This parachutist is clearly having a bad day. He was blown onto a parking lot near a shopping center. He couldn't avoid the obstacle and land in a better spot. He crashed feet first into a parking car. It looks very painful. I do hope he's okay.
No! God, please, no! No!
A small robot helps park a plane. It looks like a toy, but just look at what it can do. It resembles a tiny tracked tank, only a few centimeters tall. The robot drives under the front wheel and secures it. Then it starts pushing the plane into the hangar. It accomplishes this effortlessly, even though the plane is hundreds of times heavier than the robot. This is how aircraft landing gear is tested. A special roller starts spinning the wheels at high speeds and applies pressure to them, simulating a real takeoff or landing under heavy loads. The rotation speed increases and the landing gear begins to smoke and spark. Fire appears inside. This is necessary to determine the maximum load the plane can safely withstand and the distance required for landing. A crane was lifting an airplane but couldn't handle the load. At one point, its support buckled, and the airplane, weighing tens of tons, crashed to the ground. The people who witnessed this were shocked. One man even jumped out of his truck to get a closer look. Airplane engines are incredibly powerful. They can suck in everything around them. Watch as snow from the runway gets pulled aside. It's like a small tornado. The snow is forcefully expelled from the other side. This is probably the most expensive way to clear snow. A soldier is standing at the edge of an open cargo bay of a plane during takeoff. Just look at how calm and confident he is. He decided to sit down and enjoy the view. He's definitely done this before. It looks very epic, like a scene from a cool movie. Would you dare do the same? Write it down in the comment section below. Helicopters are sometimes used to repair power lines. They help workers quickly reach the top of power poles without cranes or other special equipment. The pilot and the repairman must work in perfect sync. The repairman carefully steps onto the pole and secures a safety harness. After that, the helicopter flies away to a safe distance. When the work is done, the repairman is picked up in the same way. This is very dangerous, as the helicopter is just a few centimeters away from the pole and live wires. One wrong move could be a disaster. A pilot narrowly avoided a crash. He was coming in for a landing, but at the last second something went wrong. The plane's body dangerously tilted, and a terrible accident almost occurred. At the last moment, one of the wheels touched the asphalt, causing the plane to bounce. The pilot managed to lift the plane back into the air to attempt the landing again. This time, he was able to level the plane and land safely. The men who filmed this were shocked and couldn't contain their emotions after witnessing it. A massive fire broke out in a field, so aviation support was called in. Look at the huge cloud of smoke rising into the air. The plane that arrived for support sprayed a special red substance over the ground. This is a fire retardant that acts as a barrier to prevent the spread of a fire. The fire was probably so large that it couldn't be extinguished easily. Just look at how many firefighters are watching this. A guy just wanted to watch a helicopter land, but the car door hit him when it slammed shut from the strong wind gust. This is why you need to be careful and stay in safe areas. Have you ever seen a helicopter transport an airplane? The sight is simply breathtaking. Using cables, the airplane is securely attached to the helicopter. Dozens of people gather nearby to watch the process. The helicopter slowly begins to descend, carefully lowering the airplane to avoid damaging its body. Passerbys who witnessed this unusual event started filming with their phones and watched the pilots work. A strong fire broke out near a man's yard, and he called for the firefighters. The firefighting helicopter arrived to help. The first attempt to extinguish the fire was unsuccessful as the water went in the wrong direction. However, on the second attempt, the pilot adjusted and managed to put out the fire in an instant. The yard and the house were saved. An enthusiast created something between a helicopter and a jetpack. A few dozen people gathered to see his invention. The man put on his helmet, secured the safety belt, and decided to show what his invention was capable of. At first, the blades just spun, and the machine remained in place. More people began to gather, curious to see what would happen next. They probably thought it wouldn't work, but the pilot had everything under control. He seemed to be building suspense and attracting more views. Finally, he signaled that everything was fine and lifted his device off the ground. The homemade helicopter rose a few meters into the air. At first, it hovered as if suspended. The man waved to the spectators from above and then decided to fly in different directions. Incredible! How skillfully he maneuvered his invention. The crowd was thrilled by what they saw. The apparatus stayed airborne for a few minutes. Then finally, the pilot carefully landed it and received well-deserved applause. A helicopter pilot performed a very dangerous maneuver. He flew right over a crowd of several dozen people. At first, they were cheering and jumping when they saw the helicopter, but then they realized they needed to crouch and drop to the ground. The wheel and rotor almost grazed the heads of spectators. If they had reacted in time, it could have been disastrous. Even the cameraman crouched down. The helicopter flew right over him. During a storm, a helicopter pilot had to land on a ship. The wind was strong, causing the vessel to sway from side to side. The helicopter was also being buffeted by the wind, so the pilot had to proceed very carefully. Concerned crew members watched closely, but finally the helicopter was successfully landed on the ship. Enthusiasts decided to build a helicopter out of an old car. They attached a rotor and an engine. Another car tows this incredible machine, and to everyone's amazement, it actually lifts off the ground. At first, the car hovers just a few centimeters above the ground, but the altitude increases. It resembles a kite. To reduce the weight of the car, almost everything inside was removed. This becomes evident when the car rises several meters above the ground. Take a closer look. There's almost nothing left inside. It's just the shell. But suddenly, the homemade helicopter lost balance and crashed down. The towing cable snapped, leaving the car stranded on the roadside. A pilot made a dramatic ribbon cutting at the opening of an air show. He flew the plane upside down just a few meters above the ground and then soared back into the sky. The plane was likely attempting an emergency landing as it was descending on a regular road with cars calmly driving by. When the drivers saw the danger, they began clearing the way. However, the plane still collided with an obstacle at high speed. Just look at the debris flying everywhere. A man walking across a pedestrian crossing barely dodged the danger and jumped to the side. A passenger captured stunning footage of lightning striking an airplane from the window of the plane. Don't worry, airplanes are equipped with lightning rods, so the passengers are safe. A massive fighter jet is being transported on a regular highway by a truck. The wings were removed to prevent it from obstructing other vehicles and to allow it to pass under bridges and through tunnels. A man was sitting and relaxing near his house when suddenly a firefighter helicopter flew in to collect water for extinguishing a fire. It lowered a special bucket to scoop up water and then rushed back to fight the fire. In Argentina, the pilot of a small plane crashed into a warehouse at a local business. He died instantly. The factory workers were unharmed, but they had to be evacuated because explosive materials were stored there. According to preliminary information, the pilot worked at this factory and decided to commit suicide after an argument with the management. Imagine driving down the highway and suddenly an entire squadron of helicopters roar overhead. 6 of them flying so low and slow that you can get a good look at them. It's just breathtaking. If I saw this with my own eyes, I'd be amazed. It's a rare sight to see. The pilots probably decided to fly over the road to avoid getting lost. Have you ever seen helicopters flying so low over a road? Share your experience down in the comments. This horrific plane crash was captured in Kathmandu, the capital of Nepal, in July of 2024. The plane crashed during takeoff. It began to lose speed and turned almost sideways. When it hit the ground, there was a massive explosion. Just look at the enormous cloud of black smoke rising into the air. 18 people died instantly. The pilot, though, miraculously survived. A plane is assisting Turkish rescuers in extinguishing a burning building. It flies very low over the fire and releases its water tank. Just look at how spectacular it is when tons of water turns into a massive white cloud that covers everything around. The water douses not only the burning house, but also the people nearby. It's like being caught out in a rainstorm. The moment a passenger plane crashes in Brazil, it quickly loses altitude and spirals downward. Residents of the nearby city witnessed the event. They heard the sound of the plane and started recording. Unfortunately, all crew members and passengers perished. There were 62 people total on board. This is how planes drop humanitarian aid and supplies from a great height. The cargo hold opens, and at the right moment, dozens of crates are ejected. Notice how calmly the soldiers walk inside during this process. I would be terrified to be in an open plane, even with a harness. Another plane follows, dropping even more crates of supplies. There are several dozens of them. As soon as they are out of the plane, large parachutes open, slowly descending to the ground like a swarm. The pilot of this F-35 is a true ace in the sky. Just look at how precisely he performs a dangerous stunt. The plane goes vertical and starts spinning in the air. Imagine that feeling. It's hard to tell whether it's shooting upward like a rocket or hovering in midair. Then, the pilot engages the engines and flips the jet upside down. It's simply incredible. Such skill only comes with years of training. Would you like to learn how to fly and perform stunts like this? Let us know down in the comments. Mechanics were preparing the plane and decided to test its engine. At first, everything was going smoothly, but suddenly, the propeller flew off and crashed into the asphalt. It was extremely dangerous to be nearby. Someone probably didn't tighten the nuts properly, but thankfully, nobody was injured. The owner of this helicopter is definitely crazy. He decided to attach fireworks to the helicopter. He lit them and took off. It looks like a combat jet firing missiles. Just look at how spectacular it is. Although it is quite dangerous, the pilot probably always dreamed of being in the military. He's flying just a few meters above the ground, imagining taking out enemies. The pilot put on a real pyrotechnic show. You wouldn't even see this at a holiday celebration. There are many ways to have fun when you own a helicopter. It might seem like two planes are flying side by side, or that they've been fused together. This is the first time I've seen such an unusual aircraft. But in reality, it's a single aircraft called the Stratolaunch with a futuristic design. Its wingspan is the largest in the world, and it has 2 fuselages. Not everyone gets to see something like this, especially so close to the ground. Notice it's flying just a few dozen meters above the ground, with ordinary cars passing underneath. The drivers probably have no idea what's flying above them. This pilot had to make an emergency landing on a dirty road in the jungle. There are trees all around and no proper runway. To make matters worse, another plane is parked across the road in his path. The man standing near it panicked and started running away from the danger. A collision was narrowly avoided. The cameraman filming this stood so close that the wing almost grazed him. It whizzed right over his head at incredible speed. Just a little closer and there would have been a disaster. A pilot is performing an air show in the sky. At one point, we see his engine shut off, and the plane begins to move oddly. It looks like something has gone wrong, and the plane is about to crash. Your heart skips a beat when you see this, but in reality it's just part of the show. The pilot restarts the engines and continues flying. In Sweden, an Antonov An-2R plane was trying to take off from a field. It took quite a while to gain speed and managed to lift off too late. There were trees ahead that needed to be avoided. If the plane had taken off just a few seconds earlier, everything would have been fine. The pilot realized this and tried to turn the plane to avoid the obstacle, but it was flying too low. In a split second, it hit the tops of the trees and crashed. Fortunately, no one was injured, but the plane was severely damaged. To ensure that passenger airplanes always look impeccable, they need to be regularly repainted. For this, the aircraft is moved into a special hangar, where a whole team of specialists works on its renewal. Using suspended platforms, the workers can perform their tasks conveniently and efficiently. First, they remove the layer of old paint, leaving the metal shining like a mirror. Next, the surface is treated with a special compound that ensures a strong bond with the new layer of paint and protects against corrosion. To apply the name, special masking tape is used. After painting, it is removed, leaving a perfectly even inscription. Once the process is complete, the protective film is removed from the windows and glass, and the airplane looks as if it has just rolled off the assembly line. During an air show at the Dallas airport, spectators witnessed a mid-air collision between planes. One of the pilots was moving quickly and misjudged the distance to another aircraft. He collided with it and debris started flying through the air. The spectators were shocked by what they saw. Within seconds, the planes crashed into the ground. A massive explosion occurred, and a cloud of black smoke and flames shot upward. Unfortunately, the pilots did not survive. Fighter jet pilots are true professionals. They handle their planes with incredible skill. Just look at how they fly in perfect synchronization and perform extraordinary stunts. We're lucky to see the show not from the ground, but from the cockpit of one of the pilots. The distance between them is minimal, making this a dangerous maneuver. It takes your breath away to watch, but they execute it very smoothly. The planes first go into a vertical position and then flip upside down. Dozens of people witnessed the filming of a movie scene involving a plane crash. We were fortunate to see how it's done behind the scenes. The plane is lowered with cables to simulate flight, and at the right moment, its wings fall off and it crashes into an obstacle. However, the pyrotechnics were slightly off, as the explosion occurred just a second before the plane's nose touched the ground. Nevertheless, it still looks very epic. This is how fertilizers and pesticides are applied to fields. The plane sprays tons of solution just a few meters above the ground. It's much faster and more efficient than using conventional machinery. It might look like the aftermath of a horrific plane crash, but don't worry, this is just one of the locations at Universal Studios Park. These are sets that simulate a plane crash. The attention to detail is impressive. There's even an engine emitting smoke, and inside the roofless plane, you can see passenger seats. During an air show, the pilots drew a huge heart in the sky. 4 fighter jets flew very closely to each other on each side. This is a truly dangerous stunt. It's interesting, though, to wonder if someone proposed to their beloved during such a show. The pilots played a prank on their girlfriends, who were asleep on the plane. They suddenly descended rapidly, and the passengers experienced weightlessness. It's an incredible sensation, usually only felt by astronauts and pilots. Just look at their reactions. They're thrilled. Would you be brave enough to try something like this? A guy and a girl were skydiving, but something went wrong. They accidentally collided and their parachutes got tangled. It's extremely dangerous. Your blood runs cold when you see this from a first-person perspective. But these two are true professionals. It didn't scare them or make them panic at all. The guy started detaching his parachute, giving instructions to the girl and descending quickly. Don't worry, there's always a reserve parachute for situations like this. He fell a few dozen meters and they pulled the cord to deploy a new parachute. Notice how close he was to the ground. Thanks to their coordinated efforts and calm demeanor, they managed to land safely and without injury. In a retro video, we could see an emergency landing of a fighter jet. When it touched the ground, a missile fell out and, due to inertia, flew towards a group of pilots. They started running when they saw it. Which video did you like the most? Let us know down in the comments below, and don't forget to support this video with a like and subscribe to see more interesting videos in our collections. We'll see you in the next videos.